Since my last video was one of the more depressing news stories of this week so far, I decided you guys have earned a fun, lighthearted pop culture review, so that is what I will be giving you. As lighthearted as it gets, because we are reviewing Season 4 of Bojack Horseman. And this is actually going to be a part of a new series I'm going to be doing on this channel called Overdue Reviews, where I'll be reviewing things that were either released in the last year or the last decade that I just didn't get around to reviewing, but that I have an opinion on. If you like this video and want to see more like it, let me know down in the comments section below. But without further ado, let's just get into it. So, in my opinion, Bojack Horseman is arguably the best animated television series of all time, and possibly one of the best television shows of all time, period. And the reason why is because this show, in my opinion, is one of the most detailed and most honest character studies about depression that I've ever seen. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I personally have struggled with clinical depression for my entire adolescent and adult life. And so for me, watching this show, I see a lot of pieces of myself that I've worked really hard to overcome mirrored in Bojack, and a lot of the time it leads to some uncomfortable introspection, but I think that that's good, especially that a cartoon horse can make me feel those things. So for those who have somehow been in the dark for the last 4 years and not seen this show yet, what are you doing? The premise is that we are following the life of an aging TV actor horse with substance abuse issues and problems connecting with people. He is severely depressed and constantly seeks attention, love, and notoriety, and is afraid of those things and pushes them away at the same time. He also frequently becomes frustrated and lashes out at other people in ways that serve to hurt him and the people in his life even more. It is a fantastic character study of depression and abuse and how these things compound over time. But what I absolutely love most about this show is, even though it does a lot of work building backstory, even though it does a lot of explaining why Bojack is the way he is, the show doesn't let him get away with being the way he is just because he's the way he is. And for me, I think that's really important, because a lot of the time when I see people using a sob story from their past as an excuse for shitty behavior now, all I can think is that I know better people from worse circumstances. And that, a lot of it is the idea of Bojack Horseman, is that none of those things are an excuse. You are the things that you do. You are the people that you hurt. You are the decisions that you make. There is no deep down. There is no secret place where you're a good person. You're either a good person to other people, to the people in your life, or you're not. And this show does just an incredible job of engaging with that. So in Season 4, the storylines are kind of divided among a few different characters. Bojack's main storyline is about a young horse named Hollyhock who comes into his life, and his mother Beatrice, who ends up staying with him for the latter half of the season. Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, their story is primarily about Mr. Peanut Butter's run for governor and their marriage, and a lot of tension between the two characters. Princess Carolyn's storyline is at first more peripheral and then focused on the worst day in her life, basically, where everything just goes wrong. Todd's storyline is mostly about his asexuality and shenanigans. And Beatrice, Bojack's mother, is mostly only a focal point of the story through her backstory, although she does make a lot of modern appearances as well. I am going to rank my top 5 episodes and talk a little bit about the parts that I loved most about this season. Spoiler alert from here on out, by the way. So, in no particular order except for the first, my top 5 episodes are Season 4, Episode 9, Ruthie, which is basically the story of an awful day in Princess Carolyn's life as told in her imagination by her future descendant. And it really does a good job analyzing how Princess Carolyn relies so much on being in control and landing on her feet that she doesn't really give herself any ability to process bad things when they happen to her, or to just feel her feelings. She usually focuses on controlling the situation, and when she's in a situation where she's unable to do that, she has a tendency to lash out and panic and make situations in her life worse, and I think we really get to see the snowball effect of that in this episode. My next favorite episode is season 4, episode 6, Stupid Piece of Shit. This episode is one in which Bojack goes about his day generally destroying things and hurting the people in his life, but this time we get to see an internal monologue explaining why. This episode is a great one for showing how Bojack continually justifies and enables his own behavior. Although it also has this really disturbing scene where he snatches a toy doll from his demented mother that Hollyhock got to comfort her, and then he flings the doll over the balcony because of his own feelings about how he was treated as a child and as a baby. And that scene just bothered me so much. I know it's meant to make Bojack look like an asshole because he's kind of an asshole, but holy shit. Just her reaction and the fact that it's his demented, abusive mother who now is just, fragments of the person she was, and he's doing this to her. It just didn't sit well with me. That scene just made me so uncomfortable. The whole scene where he gets the doll back, I was just like, I just want this to be over. But again, I think it's interesting that an animated TV show made me feel those things. My third favorite episode was Underground, in which fracking traps Mr. Peanut Butter, Diane, and Bojack in their mansion underground with a number of Hollywood celebrities at a benefit. It gets pretty wacky. There's a lot of drinking. At one point they eat Zach Braff, who did cameo and play as himself, which mad props to Zach Braff for that. That performance was hilarious. My second choice episode is The Old Sugarman Place. It's the first episode that we really start getting into backstory with Beatrice, Bojack's mother. And I think this episode is just very affecting because the parts of the episode where it focuses on Beatrice's mother and her abusive father are just absolutely heartbreaking. And there are, of course, these jaw-dropping moments because of the time period that it's set in, where you see all of these horrible things happen that would never happen today. Her mother is lobotomized because of her inability to handle grief over Beatrice's brother Crackerjack dying in the war. And there are all these other scenes of abuse that continue through the series, but this episode really did just stick with me. There were all these moments. One particular moment, at the end of the episode, her mother pauses and says, "I have half a mind," and then trails off, and it just hits you. It just gut punches you, this fucking episode. And then I'd say the best episode was season 4, episode 11, Time's Arrow. It's the second to last episode, and it's an episode where a lot of things are finally revealed and we understand more of what's happening in the series. And we also get this really bittersweet ending where Bojack leaves his mother in a care facility and he's been vindictive and shitty to her this entire time. And again, if she were in her present frame of mind, if she were mentally present, I wouldn't be so annoyed by it. But she's obviously a disabled, mentally unfit person at this point, and his continued abusive behavior towards her is inexcusable. But he does this thing at the end of the episode where he relents a little bit, and when she's terrified and asking where she is, he tells her she's at the lake house and describes this beautiful scene, and she calms down, and there's just this moment where you can almost see Bojack deciding to be better. And I think that this was a really poignant episode, and the series ended up, the season ended up having a really poignant and just very complete feeling ending. If they chose to actually end the series here and make this the last season, I would completely understand that. I don't know if another season is upcoming or not, but I thought that this season did absolutely everything it needed to for the story. I would argue this might actually be almost a season of perfect television. It just, the way that it builds the basis for all of these revelations and then gives you that payoff every single time, it's just perfectly executed. Everything about this show is amazing. If you haven't seen this show, if you don't typically like animated shows, I would absolutely say go watch this show and give it a chance. Season 4 in particular is some of the best TV I've ever seen. The writing is phenomenal, and this is a show that gives you a lot of complicated feelings and a lot of complicated questions to ask about yourself and the people in your life as well. If I had to rate this series, I would honestly give it a 10 out of 10. It's just so good. So go watch Bojack Horseman if you haven't. If you also love the show, or if you liked this video, let me know in the comments section down below. If you didn't, I am sure you will tell me. That is all I have for you at this point. Wiedersehen.